In contrast, the newly unified German Empire was leading the nations of continental Europe in a new system away from free trade to protectionist measures that encouraged the growth of a domestic industrial base, not as dependent on colonization. Germany was competing in the production of steel, electrical power, chemical energy, agriculture, iron, coal, and textiles. Its banks and railroads were growing, and in the battle for oil, the newest strategic fuel that was necessary to power modern navies, Germany's merchant fleet was rapidly gaining on Britain's. England, now heavily dependent on oil imports from the US and Russia, was desperate to find potential new reserves in the Middle East, which were part of the tottering Ottoman Empire. And when the Germans began building a railroad to import this oil from Baghdad to Berlin through their alliances with this Ottoman Empire, Britain was deeply opposed. The interests of their nearby Egyptian and Indian empires were threatened. Enormous unrest in the Balkans, particularly in Serbia, helped block the Berlin-Baghdad Railroad from completion. In fact, it was a minor affair in Serbia that finally set off the chain of events of World War I when the Archduke Franz Ferdinand, heir to the Austro-Hungarian Empire, and his wife were assassinated on the streets of Sarajevo in the baking summer of 1914. The situation deteriorated quickly, and a series of complex alliances between competing economic empires led to the greatest war yet in human history. The war was a slaughter from beginning to end on a level incomprehensible to the public. In the First Battle of the Marne in 1915, the British, the French, and the Germans suffered 500,000 casualties each. The war lasted beyond all expectations. In one brutal single day at the Somme, Britain lost 60,000 dead. France and Germany suffered almost 1 million casualties during the Battle of Verdun in 1916. Repeatedly ordered to charge into the teeth of German machine guns and artillery, France ultimately lost half of its young men between the ages of 15 and 30. Germany first used poison gas successfully at the Battle of Ypres in April 1915, blanketing French troops along 4 miles of trenches. The Washington Post reported that French soldiers were driven insane or died from agonizing suffocation. Their bodies turned black, green, or yellow. The British retaliated with gas at Loos in September, only to see the wind shift and the gas blown back into the British trenches, resulting in more British casualties than German. In 1917, Germany unleashed even more potent mustard gas weapons against the British again at Ypres. The novelist Henry James wrote,
"The plunge of civilization into this abyss of blood and darkness is a thing that so gives away this whole long age, during which we have supposed the world to be gradually bettering.